All right, welcome back to another episode of the Full Subjects podcast. We are back again. We did record another episode that went stale pretty quick, so we didn't end up posting it. So we are back again. Well, we made a joke last time about saying back 30 times in the intro, so don't want everyone to miss out on the jokes that we make on the episodes that we don't post. But anyway, let's hop into what we're going to be talking about on this episode. So breaking down June stats, we are halfway through the month of July. So wanted to give our basically halfway market update of the year. Crazy to think that we're on the back nine of the year of 2025, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, we'll break that down. I know we're going to be talking about some of the economic updates and other things that are going on right now as well. So will be an action-packed episode for everyone as always. Friendly reminder, this podcast is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute any legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. It's not intended to cause or induce breach of any existing agency agreement. It's been so long that I've done that I messed it up. And of course, the opinions expressed are of myself and Cole only and don't represent Royal LePage Wolstencroft, Dominion Lending Center's Next Generation, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, and it should not be misconstrued as advice on the basis of an agency relationship whatsoever. Cole, take it away.
All right. Yeah. As Austin joked about, we are back again. The nice thing about going away is you can come back. So there's always that opportunity. But yeah, as Austin said, we'll jump into stats here. I just want to do a quick market/economic update, just give you guys an idea of what's happening right now. So a couple big things that recently came out were, and we've talked about this quite a few times before, is unemployment data. So what's happening in the job market, what's happening with inflation, and then ultimately, how do these things tie into rates and what's going to happen kind of with the economy as a whole? So in June, we actually saw 83,000 jobs gained, which is good. 84% of that was part-time work, which does make sense. In the summertime, you're going to probably expect a little bit more part-time work. You'll have some more summer jobs. That's where a lot of younger people will tend to pick up work. But what's interesting about that is that was enough jobs to keep unemployment from rising, because we've seen unemployment rise quite a bit and it actually fell a little bit. So now we're down from 7% down to 6.9%, which is the first increase in employment or decrease in unemployment. Same thing, but ultimately, yeah, first one of the year. So that's good overall in terms of the economy is being resilient regardless of the uncertainty when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. So not a bad thing, but I'll kind of get to later how that applies to rates. And then on the other side of things is inflation. So inflation did rise. It rose from 1.7% in May up to 1.9% in June. It's still below that target of 2%, and that target is something that the Bank of Canada likes to use as a metric for determining what they're going to do when it comes to interest rates. And it's ultimately their goal. They're trying to keep inflation around 2%. That's why you'll typically see things like, oh, you're only allowed to increase your rent, for example, 2%. Or a lot of employers will add a 2% year over year increase to wages because that's where inflation is set. So that number tends to get thrown around a lot, and that's because the Bank of Canada sets their target at 2%. So as I mentioned, the Canadian economy's weathered the tariff storm honestly pretty well so far. Will that continue? I don't know. Are some of the things that were put into place, like removing the carbon tax and some of the other measures that were put in place, are those kind of hiding some of the bigger problems? We'll see. But for now, the economy is doing pretty well, and it's managing to keep chugging along, for lack of a better term. So now when we get into rates themselves, so the ones that we like to talk about a lot are obviously variable interest rates. How are they going to change again? Are they not? And then fixed interest rates. So I'll start with fixed. So how fixed interest rates are typically driven are by the bond market. And recently we saw bond yields increase, which means we likely see fixed rates increase. So this week we did see fixed rates jump a little bit. Now we're not talking massive amounts. We're talking less than a quarter percentage point, but overall it does impact the fixed rates when it comes to mortgage lending. So there was a little bit of a jump there. And then from the variable side, this again ties back into the Bank of Canada, and are they going to make more adjustments? So we've had a couple pauses now. Next announcement is less than 2 weeks away, actually. So July 30th. Recent numbers said there was about a 15% chance that the Bank of Canada was going to have another rate cut. That makes sense to me based on the fact that unemployment data was strong, inflation is staying under 2%. There's not really a lot to say that we need to lower interest rates further right now. I would be very surprised if we see an interest rate cut on July 30th. I think, Austin, I speak for you on this, and I think you also would be quite surprised if we saw another interest rate cut.
I think it's probably less than 50%. There's a really good chance that we're at the end of our like rate cutting cycle, if you know what I mean. But
yeah, it's true. Like there's still some economists that strongly believe we will see some more rate cuts in the year of 2025. If we do, I would imagine it's one more at most, and it will probably still take a little bit more time or a little bit more change in terms of how the economy is doing before we see the need for that. So right now, I would say don't hold your breath if you're expecting another rate change. But with that being said, variable rates and fixed rates are very similar right now. Like they're very consistent with each other. So if you're leaning one way or the other, you're not necessarily going to save more money going one way or the other. It's just going to, again, come back to your risk tolerance and what you're comfortable with long term. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Economy is doing okay. Rates they're holding pretty steady. We're seeing some adjustments, like I said, but overall things are kind of just chugging along right now.
very well said. Great breakdown. All right, you ready for some stats?
Yeah, let's do it. So recently we started adding, or at least I added an extra kind of point to this, and I like to throw the headline of the stats package in now. So I think this headline is also actually quite interesting, and I feel like something that you and I have talked about for quite a while. So the headline is "Buying Opportunities Remain Untapped in the Fraser Valley Real Estate Market." I don't know, Austin. I don't think I could agree more with that headline.
The answer is true.
Yes, there is lots of opportunities in the Fraser Valley right now, and ultimately it's because there's lots to choose from. And feel like a broken record a little bit saying this, but like we've talked about that for probably all of 2025 at this point, if not parts of 2024. So no surprises there. There's lots to choose from and lots of good opportunities from the buying side of things. So yeah, I mean, as always, obviously reach out to us if you have questions about buying or if you're unsure about how to get that process started. We're more than happy to help with that. So, all right, Austin. So let's jump into some actual stats here. So we got listings. That's where we always start. New listings actually dropped in June, 10% down month over month. Did you see anything there that makes that number feel right, feel wrong? Like you know what I mean? Like, did you see anything that made you kind of think that listings maybe went down?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of a couple things. I definitely think we're seeing some, and this wouldn't contribute to the new listings necessarily, but definitely seeing some people maybe decide that a move isn't in their cards. Maybe they were really hoping for a certain price, didn't work out after a couple months, so they're deciding to take their listing off the market. I think also, and we joke about this all the time, real estate calendar, you definitely do see a lot more of an influx of inventory and new listings like March, April, May, and things typically start to slow down into June, July. We don't obviously have the July numbers yet, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me that things slowed down a bit. Probably a lot more people that were thinking a move is in their card this year, or move was in their cards this year, probably were looking to maybe hit the market earlier. You're definitely seeing some new listings, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me that was down a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think people are now seeing that, okay, maybe some people aren't having the success that they'd want to selling, and they were kind of on the fence, and they're like, maybe I won't list now. Maybe it's time for people to kind of slow down when it comes to trying to sell because they don't necessarily need to. They were kind of just testing the market. So I think that makes sense. I think trends will tend to dictate how people react to things. And because the trend was, it's taking longer to sell, or maybe I'm not able to sell for the price I want, like you said, maybe I won't list right now. So I don't think that's hard to believe. Active listings surprisingly actually did go up a little bit. Now that can be for a number of factors, Austin, and maybe you can get a little bit into that. But they were about 11,000 in June, so it's 2% higher than May. And we're actually 30% higher though than last June's, which again, I don't think is a huge surprise given where we're at now compared to last year. But yeah, I don't know. Can you touch on maybe some things that would contribute to active listings? Maybe the fact that number, it doesn't always necessarily represent exactly what's happening, because like I said, those things can kind of change depending on what's happening.
Yeah, well, I think that's a multitude of things. Like we're seeing sales down, so probably less, well, definitely less buyers out there.
Right.
So all of a sudden, even if you had like a normal amount of inventory and let's say sales were 30% higher or 50% higher, which is obviously a big number, but now all of a sudden some of that inventory is getting eaten up, which is going to take away from those active listings. So I think I think there's definitely a lot of people that are thinking of moving this year or have their places listed, less buyers out there. So I think it's kind of a combination of both. I think as well, with that, seeing a lot of like higher priced listings, if you know what I mean, like, let's say list price isn't necessarily around market value at the time. So we're seeing some stuff that's like, probably, 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20% higher than it should be. I know that sounds like a big number, but
right,
it is. But yeah, definitely seeing some higher price stuff that isn't necessarily where market value is right now. So I think you just have a lot of stuff that's just sitting.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's fair. And I mean, 11,000, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is higher. I think with that as well, I think it's no secret that we've seen prices down from the peak a couple of years back, and I think there's a lot of people that can only sell at a certain number. There is some people that are taking a loss, and for some people that makes sense with their situation. For some people, as much as it sucks, maybe it's just something that they feel like they have to or need to do. But I think there's a multitude of factors of listings being high or higher than usual. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's well said. Okay, let's get into sales. You talked about sales a little bit. Let's jump right into it. So we had about 1,200 transactions on MLS in June, which is actually a 1% increase from May. So not really much of a change. 9% lower than last June, but 33% lower than the 10-year average. So no surprise there. Like, we're not seeing as many sales as we did last year at this time, and we're just not seeing as many sales compared to the average amount they would expect. So again, no big surprises there. That's on brand with the fact that people just aren't buying right now. Like, it's just not the market that people seem to be enticed to buy in. Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. Like, I think because there's so much out there right now, I think a lot of buyers as well are. It's almost like decision-making fatigue, or maybe it's like too good to be true in some cases. Like, I was just chatting with somebody in my office, and for those of you that don't know, typically after a showing request with a realtor, a lot of the systems that we use will send out like an automated message for feedback. And this person in my office, they had shared that price, they got a 5 out of 5, interior really great, exterior was great. Like, basically the feedback was this was exactly what these clients were looking for, and the response message with that was the buyers want to look at a few more places before making a decision. So it's like, hey, this is perfect, this is exactly what you're looking for, they loved it. And it's kind of like, well, let's see if there's something else out there that we love more. So it's just kind of interesting. It's like you touched on at the get-go, it's a great time to be a buyer. There's lots to choose from. People are definitely taking their time with their purchase. You can view things a couple times if you want to. There's more than a handful in your desired area that you're looking for. In a lot of cases, there's multiple in the same complex, depending on the size of the complex and stuff like that. So I think it's all of those reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's such a stark contrast from years past. I mean, specifically, I think of 2022, of course, but like, it's hard to imagine how different it is now compared to, like I said, 2022. Like, you're at a complete opposite end of the spectrum, which only makes me think that we're probably going to see things start to shift back. I don't think things are going to shift back to the level that they were in 2022, where it was, hey, I looked at this now, my offer is going to be in your inbox in the next 5 minutes, or else I'm not even going to have a chance. Do I expect that to happen again? Of course not. But I do think at some point things will shift towards that direction again, because ultimately that's just the nature of the market. Like, things will continue to shift one way or the other. Sales to active listings ratio, remains at 11%. It's been 11% for a little while now, if not close to 11%. That's considered a buyer's market, which, again, no shock there. We know we're in a buyer's market. In terms of pricing, we did see some price decreases, which does make sense. I mean, as things tend to sit on the market longer and as the market tends to act in a certain way, you're likely going to see some decreases. So we did see we did actually see an overall decrease, of 1.2%. Detached homes month over month actually had an increase, but I mean, that could be for any number of factors. Townhomes decreased about 1%. Apartments were down another 1.2%. And across the board, all of your asset classes were down between 3 and 4% year over year. So we have seen pricing come down from last year. And I mean, 3 to 4% is not massive, but it's not insignificant either. Like, on $1 million, we're talking about like tens of thousands of dollars, right? It's not like, it's not insignificant, but it's it's something, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, there is adjustments being made with price. We're not seeing massive adjustments where you're seeing 10% drops necessarily in terms of what places are selling for, but we are continuing to see prices come down, and we likely will continue to see them come down a bit more, if not hold pretty steady based on how the market's doing.
Yeah, really well said. I think one thing that I wanted to touch on as well, as you're talking about like new listings, and obviously that's different than active listings. You want to be careful with new listings, because what some people will do is, instead of doing like a price adjustment on a home, of like changing a price from X to Y, assuming that's lower if it didn't sell, what a lot of agents will do is they'll do what's called a cancel relist. So they'll cancel the listing and then relist it at a new price. So that would technically show up as a new listing, and maybe that's a good reason to look at active listings with that. But just wanted to kind of share the secret sauce and kind of let you guys know just different things to look for when you're looking at stats. So,
does cancel relist impact pricing at all? It wouldn't, right? Because you're never actually transacting.
No, sometimes that can affect average days on market for sales.
Oh,
if you think about that, so like, let's say you didn't sell for $1,050,000, and then all of a sudden you drop to $1 million, and then let's say you get an offer in 3 days, then all of a sudden that's going to throw off the numbers.
Right.
Something to think about there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And speaking of days on market, that's where we're going next. So detached are, nice segue. Detached are seeing over
totally planned, guys. Totally planned to not.
Exactly. So detached, we're seeing just over 5 weeks on average. Townhouses are about 4, and then apartments are about 5.5. Apartments tend to still be the tough one, and I think it's just because there's so many of them, and there's just so many options in that asset class that people are just taking their time when it comes to buying those. Townhouses still are your strongest asset class in terms of the least decrease in price. So the prices are holding more, they're taking less time to sell, which makes sense. You and I have talked about this quite a bit. It's the middle class between your detached and apartments. So it catches people upsizing, and it also catches the people downsizing. So it's going to tend to be your stronger class. Plus, it's at a price range where more people are able to get in at that range, as opposed to being able to buy a house or a detached house is what I mean. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Does that surprise you at all?
Townhomes being,
or just detached, just days on market in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall things are just taking longer to sell. Yeah, it's lots of inventory. Sometimes, you do get lucky, you get something, an offer quick, maybe in the first week or two. I think that's more rare than common. But I was just, again, chatting with somebody in my office. There was a place that his clients were interested in, like 60, 90 days on market, something like that. And then all of a sudden they were about to write, and now all of a sudden they're up against 2 other offers, and there's 3. So that happens too. Because it's a lot of stuff is taking longer to sell. the same thing where people are then going to turn around and buy something. Maybe they only want to sell if a certain place is available, and they finally get that domino done, and then they can go shopping for something, and those people are probably in the same position as them. So yeah, lots of different factors. It doesn't surprise me necessarily that days on market is hovering where it is, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I think it's going to take some time for things to shift. As we continue to do this, we're going to see stats as the shift happens. We're going to start to slowly see those changes, and then ultimately we'll be able to look back and go, okay, now this is where the shift started. It's not likely that we're going to see a massive change in a short period of time, but at this point, things are still trending. I don't want to use the word down, but they're still trending towards it being a challenging market for sellers and a opportunistic market for buyers. And as of this time, there's nothing to indicate that things are going to shift right now. But once that does happen, we'll try to bring that information to you guys as soon as we have it.
Very well said. Anything else to add?
No, that's it for stats. Yeah, we'll obviously, I mean, we're halfway through July as of recording this, so we'll try to bring you guys the next stats episode early August, and yeah, we'll just keep going from there.
Sounds like a plan. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.